Hello, and thank you for joining this presentation, Helping Your Tween and Teen Create Lasting Time Management Habits. My name is Paltin. I'm a board-certified pediatric neuropsychologist and clinical director at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and an associate professor of clinical psychiatry at the University of Pennsylvania. I primarily work with families navigating oncological conditions, and I established a single session solution-focused intervention to support young people who are struggling with executive function challenges. This often relates to time management. I'm excited to share approaches and strategies that can help you partner with your child to better manage time so that your household can feel calmer and your time together can feel better. So, we all know this feeling. Everyone's home, dinner's done, you're washing the dishes, and you think the day has worked out great. And then, all of a sudden, you hear from upstairs, feet are stomping, or someone's yelling, and someone might say, I didn't realize this was due tomorrow, or this is taking so long, or I thought I had more time to do this, or I just can't do this right. Your calm night has just taken a dramatic turn. Many families experience this. It's often a problem with time management and the subsequent planning. Your child can be incredibly motivated to do well. They can care deeply about their academic performance, and they might be frustrated and remorseful when things don't go according to their plans. But still, your family finds yourself in this situation time and time again. It's important to emphasize that time management is a skill. It is not a value. And during this presentation, I hope to share with you ways to support your child in developing and applying these time management skills so that you can work together and realize that when you tackle time management together, you are a team and you are no longer fighting and arguing about this very important topic. So, before we get into that, it's important to highlight some facts about time management because this is such a common frustration. Over 75% of students will say that they struggle with procrastination, and this can lead to increased stress and decreased academic performance. Teens spend approximately 9 hours online every day, and that is through a variety of platforms. And what's interesting is when they try to tackle their tasks, they often attempt to do the easiest one first, which we know does not always help them complete all of their tasks. As adults, we often interrupt ourselves. People say that checking email or social media can occur almost every 6 minutes, and the time it takes to switch between tasks can take almost 3 minutes, which means not the time that you are engaging in the distracting activity, but returning from the distraction to your work or preferred activity. That downtime alone can take 3 minutes. So there's a ton of time during the day that is being wasted. And again, when we return to the more academic domain, over 88% of college students wish that they could improve their time management skills, and they believe that with improved time management, their academic performance would increase. So let's talk about a real life example that some of you might be able to relate to. Let's imagine Jay. Jay's 12 years old and she's in 6th grade. She's the oldest of 3 siblings who are in 4th and 2nd grade, and each of these siblings have their own activities. Jay herself plays travel soccer as long as other intramural sports, and she's really dedicated to learning how to play the trumpet and plays in her school band. Now at home, you have 2 parents with full-time jobs, and they are juggling multiple responsibilities and schedules. I'm sure many of you can relate to the stress of managing a child's schedule. At the same time, you're acting as a chauffeur to various activities, helping with homework, juggling all the other daily repetitive household responsibilities you have. And now here it is. It's evening time, everyone's home, and this is often when the fireworks around time management happen. Again, Jay really wants to do well. She shares when her exams are upcoming, and her parents see that she's doing her homework. It's not uncommon, though, that it's 8:30 and there is a meltdown starting because there's an assignment that was forgotten that was due tomorrow, or the amount that a test was going to cover is greater than what she had already studied for, and she is upset. And now the parents are stuck because they're not sure how to help Jay manage all of her priorities. They have tried assignment books, but assignment books might be different than the operating system that a school is using to track assignments, and those assignments might actually be featured in multiple systems, such as one that tells you when things are due versus one that tells you what the grades are. They've tried writing down all the steps to complete a task, but after doing that just once, they realized the family didn't have that kind of time to fit that process into their nightly routine. So everyone is feeling stuck. What we're going to talk about in this presentation is what can we do to try to make this better? And really, we're going to go from a theoretical discussion over what the problem is to a more focused implementation of techniques that can work. And the way we're going to do that is by helping you talk with your child in identifying a specific problem that you want to focus on, how to be incredibly precise in attacking that. And that's going to include considering timing, location, environment, mood, and all the other family demands that you are uniquely aware of for your family system. And then we're going to talk about how do we define success? How do we know if things are going well or not? And what are different resources and strategies that your family has available to them? So when we think about time management, we are often considering the many ways this impacts our life. We want to do better, and the question is, how can we realistically make a change in our system? So to do that, I think it's important to couch time management within our broader executive functions. Executive function is an umbrella term for how we do things. There is a what and there is a when we are supposed to do it. The frustration is when we are unsure of how to accomplish our goals. For example, what we know about a healthy lifestyle includes eating a diet high in vegetables and exercising regularly. The executive function question is, how are we actually going to make that fit into our lives? Executive function expectations change over time. So let's look at homework as an example from a developmental perspective. In elementary school, your child might have homework of reading for 20 minutes. And maybe the way you ensured that occurred is that you made a bargain that they had to read for 20 minutes before screen time or before they ate dessert, or there was some other expectation. That was relatively straightforward to manage because there weren't many different things happening. You understood the principle. One thing had to happen before another, and that was the conversation you had. But now middle school comes around, and your child's expected to more independently check or manage multiple online systems. Parents may or may not get weekly reminders as to how this is going to happen, and your child is involved in more activities after school and on the weekend. And then by the time high school rolls around, your child is likely managing multiple responsibilities on differing timelines. In addition to weekly tests or assignments, they're preparing for other long-term goals, like practicing for the driver's license or preparing for the ACT or SAT. And they might have a job that has a rotating schedule, so they can't actually make a plan to do the same thing at the same time every week. Over time, with this increased complexity, time management becomes more of a concern. And so one thing I think families can do, the adults in the family specifically, can help their child reduce their frustration and negative self-talk that comes along with experiencing the stressors of poor time management. And that's by providing a language that can get everyone on the same page to improve a problem. So again, we said at the beginning that time management is a skill, not a value. Children, teenagers are used to learning new skills, and we really want to approach this conversation from that neutral perspective. So a teen or tween may feel overwhelmed or frustrating, and you can hear them say things like, "What's wrong with me?" or "I don't understand what's happening." And this kind of approach can really undermine and derail the focus on skill building. You, as the adult, can recognize their strong feelings and approach time management skill building in a way that is non-judgmental and hopeful for a change. That in and of itself is really very powerful. And so when we're talking about executive functions, there are many executive functions that work in a system. I've listed some of the most common ones on this slide for you to see. We are going to be focusing on time management and awareness. So the way we are able to effectively meet deadlines is first by recognizing how long things will actually take, and then by planning accordingly. So why do we care about the executive function skill of time management? Because when that executive function skill isn't working, there are a lot of parts of our days that also are not working. So let's go back to our example about Jay. Remember, she's a 12-year-old in sixth grade. She has a lot of extracurriculars, as do her siblings, and her parents both work full time. So when she forgets to do something or doesn't plan or budget her time appropriately, you can imagine that it's 8:30 at night and now there are arguments happening in the house and people are getting stressed and maybe the yelling happening between Jay and a parent is interfering with her sibling's bedtime. There's just a lot of distress that could have been prevented if time management was more secure. And you can also imagine in those arguments, maybe her parents are saying things like, Jay, if you don't get this done, you're not going to get to go to practice tomorrow. But those are often empty threats because she is aware of her responsibilities to her team. And you really care about that too. You don't want to keep her out of the things that matter to her. And you also don't want her grades to suffer. So, how are we balancing all the things she needs to do with the things that she wants to do? And within the larger family, everyone often has responsibilities to keep the system afloat. So if Jay is doing her homework last minute, maybe she was the one who was supposed to unload the dishwasher or fold the laundry. Whose job is that now? And if it's a sibling, how do they feel about that? So really, when we have time management issues where now families are playing catch up or frustrated, so many people can be impacted on so many different levels. And I believe everyone who has joined today's conversation has tried different approaches. You've heard about how important it is to write things down. You've tried a planner or a calendar or any other of number strategies. You care about this, your kid cares about this, and you still get locked in this pattern. If it was as easy as just write it down and check your calendar, it would already be working. So today we're going to zoom out a bit and we're going to change the framework for how we address these problems. And hopefully by the end, you will feel that you have a plan to go forward so things can be easier in your home. So every kid, every system is juggling so many different things. The more balls in the air, the more things you're juggling, the more difficult it is to be flexible, the harder it is to take a step back and identify solutions and try something different. So I want to thank you again for giving of your time this evening and showing up to try to make a change in a very busy system. So we know that feeling when you're in a fight and before that fight has even started, you already know what the argument's going to sound like. You know what you're going to say. You can imagine what your child's going to say. You know how you're both going to feel. It doesn't work out, but yet you are both fiercely committed to wanting to make things better. So one important thing before we make any change is to make sure that we are having a conversation and an agreed upon collaborative goal. So you as the caregiver and your child are going to commit to do this together. But the question is, are we even looking at the same thing? What I recommend is that this is where questions matter. So the more you can ask your questions in a way that invite your child to be curious about a change, to feel the motivation to move forward towards a goal, and to agree on what progress will be, the more you will find that you can be in agreement with a process, even if you don't have the same goal at the start. I know I said a lot there. I'm going to break this down for you. But what is the most important thing to remember here is that you both recognize and agree that there's a problem, and you believe that things can get better, and that through specific steps, things will improve and people will feel better. You recognize that your family has unique experiences and strengths that you can leverage for change, and that success is specific. So we're going to help create a detailed roadmap to get to that goal. This is not going to work for all activities at all time, but there's going to be a very specific goal you have. So for example, if you're going to come up with a time management strategy for completing your math homework, that is not the same time management strategy for getting dishes done or for getting out the door on time. The process is generalizable, but the success that you're going to find is going to be specific. And what's great about this is that when you have success in one domain, it reduces the hopelessness, it increases the readiness to make change somewhere else, and the motivation to try something new again. So with this common language and this common goal, you're really taking important steps to improving time management across the board. And this is always about perspective. So going back to Jay, there are so many different goals you might have with her. You want her to finish her homework, you want her to get her chores done, and you want time at home to feel calmer and less stressful. You know the context of all the things the people in your family need to do. You know the big picture. And with that, you can prioritize what is most important or meaningful to change first. And that is when you are looking at identifying those individual steps, one specific goal in one specific location with one outcome. And that goal-oriented approach is really going to carry you very far. So with that approach, what I'm going to ask of you is to focus on the solutions over the problems. We're going to see where in the past you and your family have been successful in doing the thing that you want to happen. Even, what is the famous saying? Even a wrong clock is right twice a day. There has been a time when this went well and things went smoothly. We're going to try to recognize what contributed to that really positive experience so we can generalize that. We're going to realize how one small change can lead to a bigger change and how the language we use can really influence how the system operates. So to return to Jay, we are not focusing on the problem that Jay doesn't get her homework done. What we're focusing on is the solution that we're going to find or create a system where Jay will complete her homework. And together we're going to move towards that goal because we're all on the same page that when Jay completes her homework last minute, or if her homework is incomplete, it's impacting the family because people are yelling and there's a lot of arguments. Or maybe Jay's losing sleep because she has to stay up late and no one wants that. So we're on the same page that we want something to change. And when you've identified that you want to move forward together, you can think about what is it that you use in your family that already works. Maybe for your family, there are times during the day when using an alarm is really effective. And perhaps you found that it's most effective to use an alarm on an iPad rather than the child's smartphone, because that smartphone can be a distraction. Or if you reflect on a time when things worked well, maybe it was that one time when Jay's battery was really low and she decided to charge her phone not in her bedroom. So she was doing work, her battery was really down, the only charger was in the kitchen. That's where she put her phone, and her homework was done much more quickly and efficiently, and the rest of the night went smoothly. That's a key as to a part of your solution for the future, where that phone is getting charged during homework time. And what's really important is to approach this in bite-sized, small steps. A journey of 1,000 miles does start with that single step. So if your homework goal is to complete 5 minutes of homework without taking a break to get a glass of water, check your phone, do something else, then okay, 5 minutes is the goal, but you're not even at 1 minute yet. Maybe we actually need to make that a 1 minute goal or a one problem goal before we get to the eventual 5 minute goal, followed by 15 minutes, followed by wherever we're going to go next. It's very small steps, but they have to be realistic and attainable. And with all of this, you're doing it together. And by focusing on developing a skill, not a value, by validating how challenging and how much work this takes for everyone to make these changes, and by celebrating small successes, you really can help sustain the system of improved time management. So there are a lot of places that we want to go, and there's a lot of ways to get there. Usually, we want the most direct and efficient route, the one that we know through planning and practice. And sometimes, even when you've done all of the right things, you've made all the right choices, something unexpected can happen, like an accident along the way, and you need to pivot. All of that is to say is, when we are trying these solutions, we cannot expect that the best laid plans are going to work every time, but we do want them to be efficient and successful enough to work most of the time. So one of the first things we want to do is recognize the current process, what is actually happening, who's involved, and when is this occurring. And next, you want to help your child become aware of what 5 minutes actually feels like. So we can say, we're going to leave the house in 5 minutes, we're going to have dinner in 5 minutes. But if your child has no idea what 5 minutes actually feels like, this is kind of a waste of time. There's a reason people say time flies when you're having fun, or when you're doing something you don't like, it feels like it's taking forever, because our sense of time is variable. So if we want to talk about what 5 minutes is, we need to teach our children what 5 minutes feels like, or what 90 seconds feels like. We want data. So if we're going to make a change on how often someone takes a break while completing their homework, like I said before, if the goal is 5 minutes, but the reality is every 30 seconds they're responding to a text message, the difference from 30 seconds to 5 minutes is infinite. But if you are currently interrupting yourself every 30 seconds and your goal becomes 60 seconds, that is realistic. So before we actually make our goals, we need to know how often the behavior that we want to change is happening. It will also be really helpful to help visualize the countdown. Digital clocks are wonderful, but they don't give a sense of time passing. So whether it's an analog clock, egg timer, an hourglass, something where a child can actually see time passing is really important. That contributes to how long 5 minutes feels. It contributes to information about how much time you are on task versus off task, and it gives you a concrete goal. And part of that then is trying to, quote, gamify the system. So whether that is setting a timer and working until that buzzer, and then you want to extend how long you're setting the buzzer for, you want to make it more engaging at the beginning. And a way to do that is through games. And again, knowing internally how much time you are spending on something and how much more time you want to be spending on that task so that you can be more efficient. And of course, effective breaks. We must take breaks. That is undeniable. But there's a difference between ineffective breaks, which get on our way, and effective breaks, which actually save time in the long run. So, what is an ineffective break? An ineffective break is anything that increases our emotional responses or increases our need to make decisions. Reading about or watching videos related to current events, online shopping, starting to plan your schedule for tomorrow or the weekend, finding out a new fact about a current interest you have, and then searching for everything related to that fact or topic. That is all really interesting and very important, and an ineffective break that will not help you rejuvenate and get back on task more efficiently. Effective breaks help you reset. That can be movement or exercise, listening to music, creating something like doodling or drawing. The goal here is to pause and then return to the task you wanted to accomplish. That's why connecting with friends has a high likelihood of becoming an ineffective break, because you are now likely to engage in either decision making or emotional topics. So, having a conversation with your child about the role of breaks and what those breaks should look like so they can recharge, get back to the task at hand, and then have more time for the things that they want to do, which will include socializing and those emotional and decision-making activities that are fun or important, is essential so that they can be more successful with their time management. I want to emphasize there is no magic wand here. There is no, we're going to learn one approach, and all of a sudden you've gone from having to remind your child 1,000 times a day to they're doing it all independently. But that should not dissuade us from taking small steps that can make a change and increase your child's success and independence. And you're partnering with them in creating an environment and a skill set where they can be more in charge of their time management, which will help your family. When people signed up for this town hall webinar, they had the opportunity to ask questions, and we've highlighted 3 that we thought were really applicable to many people. And hopefully this will answer some of the questions you might have had as you were listening to this. So the first question is, we've tried things in the past, but they only stick for a week or 2. How do we make something last? So I believe that everyone who has joined this presentation has attempted to tackle these challenges. And I empathize with the frustration of putting all of your work into something and it just doesn't seem to have the effect you want. So maybe what happened is in that first week of trying something new, it went really well. Your child was super motivated and everything seemed to click. It was natural to think, great, they've got this, and then you ease off. But this is actually a key window, not to back off. You are working on transitioning from motivation to a new habit. And we all tend to revert to what's familiar. So even if your child shows early success, this is the time where you really want to keep offering the same level of high intensity support, feedback, and consistency to continue to support them in shaping that time management skill so it sticks. Don't take your foot off the gas just yet. Keep doing what works, whether those are check-ins, reminders, especially if you are seeing that it lowers the stress for everyone when these time management skills are improving. Habits take effort, and that's why it's best to just make one change at a time and only when you have the bandwidth to stick with it for several weeks. And this can really depend on where you are with your family's activities and in the academic or calendar year. So a week or two usually just isn't enough, but give it 3 to 4 weeks and you're likely to see more lasting change. Another question we received is, what if my child and I just don't agree on what needs to change? And I'm sure this is a common experience. For example, your teen comes home saying they're tired and they want to socialize, either in person or on their phone, and all you're thinking about is the homework that still needs to get done. As a parent, you can set limits around screen time for when and how long, but you don't want to get stuck in these arguments over just another 5 minutes. You want to create a place where you're having a conversation that can contribute to lasting change. And a great way to do that is through questions, especially ones your child or teen may not know how to ask yet. For instance, you might ask, I wonder how long you think you'll need to decompress. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 2 hours, but asking helps you get both on the same page and clear from the start. And if you already started working on time awareness, this could be a good moment to say, you said 15 minutes with your friends. Let's set a timer. Let's see what 15 minutes feels like. Because this is keeping you in partnership. They are agreeing to the time and you're helping them notice how long that activity takes and what the outcome of that choice is. So other helpful questions could be, when do you think you're going to start your homework? How long do you think it's going to take? You likely already have an idea, but they might not have thought it through. So as you're doing this, if you're seeing frustration build, you can zoom out a bit and focus on that. You can ask them, how have your mornings been feeling? Are you tired? Are you stressed out? What does it feel like when you're rushing through homework and you're trying to complete it at lunch or on the bus? You're helping them connect these questions with their daily experiences and the impact of planning ahead and time management, or not yet planning ahead and having strong time management. The goal is to work together on one specific issue and find a small, clear step forward. When your child has a say in creating the solution, they'll be more likely to follow through. And maybe they still want 2 hours of downtime, but you can agree that first, certain steps like finishing homework needs to happen and you're collaborating, not clashing, as they're shaping a plan. Another question we received that many people probably resonate with is, I am tired of arguing with my teen. How can I help them and avoid another fight? This is a very common experience, and you might have listened to my last answer and imagined for yourself all of the times when arguments could have happened between you and your child. So what I will suggest to you is that timing is incredibly important. These are difficult conversations to have, and you don't want to have them when things are hot and emotions are high. When you're rushing out the door or scrambling to meet a deadline, that is not the time to tackle time management. No one is bringing their curious and open-minded self to 9 p.m. on a Sunday night when everything feels like it's falling apart. Instead, choose a neutral moment. Let your child know you want to have a conversation and ask when they think would be a good time to talk. There's no need to dive into this immediately. If this has been an ongoing issue, a few more days aren't going to change anything. The key is to partner with them. Maybe they prefer talking in the car after practice or over the weekend after they've slept in. Follow their lead. When they're ready, come in with a calm, neutral observation and your curiosity. Ask if they've noticed that getting things done on time is a problem, or if they're feeling overwhelmed or stuck. Sometimes avoidance is easier than figuring things out. If you can both agree that something needs to change, whether it's getting homework done sooner, feeling less stressed, or enjoying more friend time without nagging, then you've taken the first important step. From there, you can apply strategies to improve time management and make positive change for your family. I would like to direct you, if you are interested, to CHOPS Excel's website, where you can see a variety of ideas and strategies for how to approach different executive function challenges that children and teens can experience, with both strategies and resources like books and websites and apps that might be useful for you. I also encourage you to explore these two national organizations where you can find recommendations for strategies and interventions that have science to back them up, that they can help how your child and family are completing the tasks that are important to them. If you would try a few new strategies that can support broader time management and time awareness, I'd encourage you to somehow have an analog clock in your home, even if that means taking your smartphone and converting it to an analog clock on the screen. Timers and stopwatches are excellent, whether it's an app or an actual device. This will also increase the likelihood of learning how much time feels as it is passing. And in conversation, you really want to take those tasks and all of the things that you're already thinking in your mind, make them explicit. The way we help our children and teens develop time management and planning skills is by showing them how we do it. All of the things that you're thinking about at one time, just verbalize them. Narrate some of your thoughts when you are coming up with your plans and schedules. That can really support your teen in developing their own time management abilities. And this is an important disclaimer. The information provided during this webinar is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological advice, diagnosis, or treatment, or to establish a healthcare provider-patient relationship. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The views expressed in this presentation are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the views or position of CHOP. Thank you so much for giving of your time to listen to this webinar. My direct contact information is on the slide, and I look forward to connecting with you if you have any questions about this presentation